Successful. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We'll call meeting to order. This is a Commissioners Finance meeting held weekly. It is over 10, year 2021, appointed hour, 1:30 p.m. having arrived. We will begin with a opportunity for public comment. Do you have anybody who's attending? Okay. All right, we'll move on to item 3, which is the minutes of the previous meeting on November 3. We'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the minutes of November 3.
A second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to number 4 on the agenda. That is our topic of discussion for today. And we're going to have a little updating from Justin Miller. And as you hear your voice, but Kirk's lips move, so he's here to prop you up, provide moral support, I guess. Chuck, go ahead.
All right. Well, thanks for the update. It's been a while. I know we had a lot of discussion especially when we established the electronics recycling program. We made some presentations to you on how we established the fee. So we've been at it now for a couple of years. And I just wanted to give you an update on how that program, as well as 2 of our other programs. I say we have the big 3. We got the electronics recycling, the household hazardous waste, and our yard waste program. They're the most expenses, most revenues associated with those. To a large degree, control the balance of our solid waste fund. So stepping back, Gene, maybe a little bit more so for you, the history. So the solid waste fund is separate from the general fund. For many years, we were able to collect a tipping fee on waste generated in Cumberland County that went into disposal facilities. And that through legal challenges by the industry, that source of revenue went away in 2007. Fortunately, we had accumulated some money, and we've been living on that balance since then. So our goal for the last 5 years has been to try to make that fund last as long as possible, and also look at creative ways to do that, and potentially maybe even increase level of service, which I think we've done, and I'll share with you in a minute. But so I'm going to start with electronics recycling. When we put that program together, we did requests for proposals from both manufacturer-supported programs and non-manufacturer. We got no interest from the manufacturers. And that's what led to a fee-based program. Our only interest was from recyclers that were not working under manufacturer requirements. For them to survive, they had to charge somebody a fee. In that case, it was us. So we developed a fee of 50 cents a pound based on their proposal. And they did give us a structured pricing list. And at that time, I really assumed that we were mostly going to receive the old style TVs, which was the most expensive item. And that to a large degree drove how we came up with 50 cents a pound. I will say I've been pleasantly surprised, and I really commend the citizens who've been using the program, that we have gotten a mix of material and not just the TVs. So if you look at assume this is the pointer here. I don't know if it shows up on the screen. So I did a bar graph there, upper left corner. And just to note, 2021 and 2022 are projections. 17 through 20 are actuals. So how we track expenses and revenues in Lawson, you can see our revenue has been exceeding our expenses, and it's actually a gap is opening up a little bit as we go along. Overall, though, the program has run about 41 cents a pound, but that does not include, that's one point, it doesn't include my time. I will say, just factually, I spent a fair amount of time down there, especially last year during the pandemic when we could not use trustees. But at the end of the day, that program has generated some revenue for us, which I want to get to later on. And the bigger picture, I think, has been good for the solid waste fund. It's also allowed us in 2019, we added indirect costs to the program. And that's only been since 19. So as that continues along, I expect it's probably not going to raise it much. Really depends on the total pounds we get, but that may bring that 41 cents up a little bit. But the material mix, we are seeing, it's not a huge difference, but we are seeing less and less weight on the old style TVs. And then the weight of the new flat screens are coming up. And they're cheaper than the old style TVs. And we're getting, we had a guy last week brought spools of copper wire. And, I tried to convince him he could take that to a scrap plate, and he was content to use our program. So once again, really surprised and commend those people.
Who'd you sell it to?
Kirk did that. The other thing, the contract has an annual renewal clause. As long as they don't change any terms or conditions, we can renew every year. The recycler has, in my opinion, been gracious and done that. I'm always fearful that's not going to happen, and I'm fearful once again, especially with like inflation we're seeing. Transportation is part of that. I expect transportation is going to go up. And actually, I told Kirk this. Back in June, we got an invoice from them, and there was a note at the bottom that said, beginning July 2021, we will be implementing a universal waste fee of 3% on all invoices. This will cover negative value items that are ever increasing in our recycling stream. So collection sites collect stuff intentionally or unintentionally that they don't want, and they have to dispose of its cost. I called them and I said, under the terms of our contract, we can't do that. But I anticipate that's going to be a factor when the renewal comes up. And that happens at the end of April. And they have to we have to decide that 9 days before. So I'll know by the end of January whether we need to go back out to bid or not. So my point is there's still some unknowns. Personally, I like the little bit of padding that we left. It's allowed for some other things, which I did in a summary sheet for you at the end there.
I'll do one other quick note on it too, Justin. I think, Travis's program out there with the trustees helping us out from the prison really made this program work. I mean, Judd's done an exceptional job, managing the whole program, setting it up. We go from, government agency here to business really quickly when we did this. And, Justin really did an excellent job making that transition, because there's a lot of folks as we're going through this, like, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. We found a way to do it, and we found to do it very well. And we have 3 part-timers that help us out. They're an excellent asset to us too. I mean, especially the environment now of trying to find good people. We have some great part-time folks that are doing well. And I think under Justin's leadership too, they're really developing nicely. But the trustees too, to be able to have those folks come out and help us out when needed, really helps make this program work. So without them, I think we need probably another couple part-time people. And again, trying to get anyone to work these days is tough, let alone someone on part-time capacity, perfect like that. So very happy with the staffing. Our customer service survey results too have been exceptionally high. Satisfaction with the service. I think we're still at 100% with our staff. In a question that our staffing professional courtesy. Courteous, that's been at 100%, and we like to see that. We know our staff's doing the job. They may have issues with other parts of the operation, but our staff are doing a good job. And even, is the 50-cent fee acceptable? We're finding a high percentage of that as well. It's finding the fee to be acceptable.
It's a good point. I looked at 2020 survey results before I left, and that's one of the questions. Do you think 50 cents per pound is a reasonable fee for a non-tax funded service? And 90% said yes. And in my opinion, it doesn't matter what you charge. You'll always have those few people that are going to complain. But by and far, I think most people are pretty content. And we do have, just FYI, there is a collection site down in Franklin County. It's actually run by a municipality that owns a transfer station. They also charge 50 cents a pound, and they have a minimum fee of $15. So if someone come in with something light, they're going to pay a little more than they pay with us. But so I don't think the 50 is.
Now Hampton did an event or something last summer, didn't they? And it was free. So do they talk to us at all in any way, or does that?
I don't know. That may have been the paper shred.
Yeah,
Paper shred. Yeah. I don't know that yeah, I'm not sure they did electronics. Gary,
Somebody did it electronics.
it's a good point though.
Just a one day thing.
And it's back to, in my opinion, the flaw with the law. Manufacturers are required to show proof they recycle a certain percentage of weight. The reality is there's much more weight out there than they're required to do. So a lot of times they'll wait to the end of the year, and because they don't want to go over, then they lose money. Then they'll try to maybe throw together a quick free collection just to try to capture some additional weight. In my mind, it's cherry picking, and that's how I see it. So something might have been done. I just don't recall.
Well, obviously, it's to my question, it's not having an impact on us. So.
No, we also ask for zip codes, and we get a decent amount of people from Franklin County, Adams County. We get people from Dauphin County, which surprises me because they have a program over there. So
Some people don't want to drive to that location.
it could be. But overall, this program has blown me away. I think it's been very successful. I'm very pleased.
Let me ask this, and maybe you hit on this, but so the loss of the trustees, what did that do to us in terms of your projections?
Well, we have them back now.
Yeah, but I mean, so you had a number of months there where you're
Almost a year.
essentially your
Yeah. So I went down.
went away. So
Yeah. Well, I was helped. I helped out a lot.
okay,
And then I would, we ask on our website if someone has a big load, give us a heads up. And a few times I recruited, some other staff members. If we knew a big load was coming in, to give us a hands on. So
just kind of made do.
we just made do.
We got by, but guys out there worked really hard. We were very proud of them. There was no complaining from anyone. Oh, now we don't have our help. We should close. We should whatever. That was, hey, we're going to get by. They did a great job. Customer service was still really high. And we're thankful when the trustees came back. But all of them, Justin, all the part-time guys, and really threw it. The rest of the finance staff as well. When needed, we all came down and helped out.
Yeah, even run a cash register. So we
Why are
made
they
it
called
work.
Trustees.
What's that?
Why are they called trustees?
I don't know. And I always thought it was TRUSTEE. Then I was reading rules down at the prison one day when I signed them.
Oh,
It's-
okay.
It's TRUSTY. I think they're
Oh,
trying to earn the trust
got it.
of the system.
I was thinking something,
Yeah.
I was thinking along the same lines, so.
Yeah.
So why?
Yeah.
Report each month. I've always did this.
Mhm.
You see it as TY.
Yeah.
That is the
Yeah.
correct spelling.
So generally, they're low-level offenders and generally do volunteer work. And they're trying, my understanding, they're trying to earn their way to work release
Yes.
by demonstrating their skills or cooperation. Any more questions on electronics recycling?
Are we still just doing Tuesday, Wednesday schedule?
Yeah, and second and fourth Saturday.
So we are doing Saturdays. Okay, they're on a regular schedule. Good.
And it was, I regret, I appreciated the trustees when I didn't have, because COVID, caused people to be at home and clean out. So we shut down for 2.5 months and we opened back up. Dude, we were getting slammed. You can see in 2021, how the numbers come back up. And even 2020, to just consider we were closed for 2.5 months in 2020.
Justin, I have a question about the contract with the recycler. Where the recycler's saying we're going to put this charge on here because we're going to collect things that we don't want. Is that happening in our facility? Because it seems as if there's already, a stop on collecting things that they wouldn't want.
Well, I noted it's interesting. In the last invoice I got from them, they added a new category called garbage, and it showed 25 pounds. Now that could be, they do have a list of things they don't want, like compact discs. So I can't say that some compact discs don't get through there. They don't want wooden speakers. What we'll try to do is identify them, pull them out, take it apart. I mean, I understand they don't want the wood. It's
Right.
useless to them. So, But 25 pounds out of 25,000, I thought was pretty good. But I bet there's some sites that, and I'm just guessing, just throwing everything in there.
I wonder if you could, when the time comes, if you could negotiate that off with them. And show them
We
that.
could, yeah. And maybe they'll renew. I don't know. My guess every year is they won't. I'm surprised they have. And I'm hoping it's because I think we do run a good site, and we generally send them pretty clean material. We try to comply with what they want us to do. So, we're trying to do a good job for them.
Yeah.
We had difficulty getting any other bidders in the past. Is that situation going to change at all, or do you anticipate we're still going to struggle with that?
I think I don't think we're going to see people knocking down the door.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably, if we have to bid again, we'll get a couple, but not a lot.
But you continue to be satisfied with the service. What is it, Sun
Sun King, yeah.
Sun King? And
I am.
happy with it?
Yeah,
We're fortunate.
And we are fortunate. Some sites, the recycler won't spot a trailer on the site. The fact that they do, and we can load at our convenience instead of having to load while trucks waiting. They provide all the packaging materials. Some recyclers are reluctant to do that. So I've been happy with it.
I said it before, I'll say it again. I think you guys have done a phenomenal job with this. I mean, you've approached this very entrepreneurially, and that rather than just making relying on the county tax dollars to do it. User fee took some wherewithal to put in place, took a little bit of guff from it, but I think that and the household hazardous waste have gone a long way toward helping acclimate, educate the public that this is a worthwhile service and it's something that users should be willing to pay for. I think that's reflected in your numbers, but you guys have put together a really, really good program. It's numbers show it's something that the public really embraces, great value for the dollar.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. For whatever reason, over time, my experience has been people think recycling should be free or pay them money. There's never been a cost side, but the reality is there's a cost to provide that service. I mean, it's just the reality. Sometimes, yes, you can get some revenue to help offset your costs, but usually you can't cover all of it. So I hope, and I'm starting to see some other counties implement fee-based programs. So I hope, I wonder maybe if they're looking at us as an example to follow suit, but there's a cost to provide services.
So what else you got for us?
All right, hazardous waste. So maybe not so good on this one. I will say 2019 to 2021 are actuals. So the program for 2021 is over, so those are actual costs. 2022 is a projection. We were fortunate when we did our last plan revision and we did disposal contracts. We had a consultant helping us. We did what's called an option for voluntary sponsorship of any of our programs. Shortly after we lost the tipping fee, we were looking for revenue sources. At that time, it wasn't advanced. I think it was Northeast Waste Systems that owned the landfill, and they owned three others. They offered $5,000 per facility, 4 facilities, $20,000 a year towards our household hazardous waste program, which last year was year 8, so we've gotten $160,000 to help offset the cost of that program. Which when we developed the fee for that, we factored that in. That's how we came to 30 cents a pound. Waste Management bought Advanced Disposal, who had eventually bought them. I would normally contact the facilities in the spring and they'd send a check, and that didn't happen this year. I've tried a few times to get them to send sponsorship. Now I can't, and our solicitor, Jen Hipp, she attends the authority. She's doing some work on this. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to, I don't know legal rights and wrongs, but to me, I think it's kind of vague. It says it's voluntary. Whether we have an opportunity to go after that 20,000, I don't know. but we have not received it this year. So if you look at 2021, all of a sudden we were, accumulating a little bit of money. Now we're going to a big gap. Also, indirect costs were added to the program starting this year. I think because we were doing well in the previous years. So those additional costs, I just did some math for you there. We're going to be short about 16 cents a pound this year if we don't get that 20,000. And even if we get it next year, the contract ends mid-year. I'm sure we're not going to get it. They would wait till the contract expires. I don't foresee additional sponsorship money in the future. Just knowing Waste Management and having dealt with them in the past. So the one thing I wanted to seek your thoughts and input on is the math shows then in 2022 to get back to essentially break evens, 18 cents a pound. When we're setting fees, I would recommend, it's my recommendation that you do it either at a 5 or a 0, like 45, a 50, not 48, 87 pounds times 48 is like 64 cents. Just makes it easier on us. But so I'm recommending our user fee go to 50 cents a pound in 2022 to make up those additional costs that we're facing.
You told us this before, but what's the average bill?
I think the average customer will bring 30, say probably about $35 right now.
Okay.
And at 50 cents a pound, or it'll go up into probably the 57 range. The other counties I mentioned that I'm starting to see charge fees. I know some other counties are doing this. They're charging like 75 cents to 85 cents a pound. So I still think 50 cents a pound is decent. I don't think it's outrageous.
Yeah, you know how it is. People are gonna remember what they paid for the most part, and it's gonna be the increase that they're gonna.
Oh yeah.
So.
Well, Kirk had an angry customer, but for the most part, most of our fee complaints have been on the east side. I very rarely hear any complaints on the east, and I don't know if that's because they just associate that this is a more dangerous, nasty material.
People are really anxious to get rid of this.
Yeah, and anxious to get rid of it, and it's been interesting to me that even complaints on electronics have not been that great, but much less on the household hazardous waste.
Well, the complaints wouldn't necessarily be our major concern. It would be the price elasticity of your product. In other words, are you chasing people away? Are we going to discourage people?
Yeah, so that's a good question.
Did we ever do any research on not only on whether people were willing to pay, but did we ever test any amounts, price figures?
No, it just asks, I think, about the current price.
Okay.
Well, Justin, what drives someone to bring their household hazardous waste to you?
That's a good question. And it took me years to learn this, so I'll try to explain it quickly.
Okay.
But this waste is not, when they wrote laws that regulate different types of waste, they excluded homeowners. So homeowners have a federal exclusion. So what that means is, let's take oil-based paints, flammable. Technically meets the definition of hazardous. They say in a homeowner's hands, it doesn't matter, we're just going to consider municipal solid waste. Now, if you're a business, the burden is on you to make the determination that you're generating the hazardous waste and manage it appropriately. So what that means is a homeowner legally could dispose of a good bit of this stuff in the trash. The catch-22 they run into is haulers, because of the inherent risk it presents in the collection vehicle, will just flat out refuse to collect it. So then they're left with, well, how do I get rid of this? And when you do have to manage this hazardous, the cost goes up compared to regular trashers. I mean, that's expensive to do. So I mean, sometimes we calls, I'll refer them to a private company, and I know when they call them, they're gonna tell them easily hundreds of dollars.
Right.
Here. So it's back to really, if they don't, feel comfortable putting in the trash, or trash haulers told them they can't, or they want to do what they think is a better thing for the environment, I think that drives a lot of decisions. Then it's really these types of programs.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't sound like there's anywhere else to go.
Not really. That's why I mentioned the trash option or a private company, but private companies just, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll step backwards though. People would just go back to, pouring their motor oil into the garbage or something.
I think that do the right thing motivation too is pretty big, because when we've talked to customers at the event, they're willing to share why they're there.
Right.
A lot of them you can talk to, so, especially like latex paint, we'll dry it out and put it in trash. No, I don't want to do that. Thank you for having the event. I want to dispose of it this way.
Properly.
Yeah. And then also, I think the other motivation I've seen too in talking with people at the events is to create space. Like we've had this for so long, we want space and we just want to get rid of it, so this was a convenient outlet to do it.
Shed flammable stuff. A lot of people talk about having flammables in their garages and stuff.
But you did the two charts at the bottom there. Once again, 2021s are actuals. We have, and I wanted to say this later on, but I'll say it now. We've reduced the amount our solid waste fund is losing every year pretty significantly. At the same time, in my opinion, increasing our level of service. But this year we did last year 4 HHW events. We used to do 1 a year. So we've upped the opportunities, and we're also, as a result, increasing the amount of material we're collecting. And the trends, so 2022 is based on the trend, is suggesting that this program is still growing, has some growth to it. Whether raising the fee curtails that, I don't know. It's a good point you brought up, Gary.
What about, I think I've asked this before, but like with the electronics, you mentioned about the waste, the nature of the waste stream is changing, of course, but did we or do we ever anticipate that people will have cleaned out enough that we expect to see the levels diminish significantly? And the same question, I guess to a lesser extent, it would seem on the household hazardous waste.
Yeah, I think, and electronics materials trending smaller and lighter. So over time, I don't know how long it'll take to get to that point, but I do agree that, I think you have a good point in that at some point, it's going to be a lot, weight's going to be down.
So it's going to impact our revenues.
I don't know most of what we get at the household hazardous waste event is paint. And to my extent, I don't think there's anything that's changed with paint composition wise. That's now generally I've read studies where people don't clean out household hazardous waste as frequently as they would electronics. It's more like on a 3 to 4 year period versus an annual period. So it'd probably be spread out over time too. It's good. Yeah, I wouldn't even want to predict how many years. Still be generating stuff, but
We'll always have the need to be repainting. So.
The program too, one other item note too, is we went from the 1-day event, typically held in Allen Road. It was a circus. It really was. It was, people lined up 2 or 3 lanes around the building, and it was difficult. So again, under Justin's leadership, seeing that that's an issue, we went from a free program where everybody could come just whenever and drop things off, which is pretty customer friendly, to requiring reservations and paying a fee. So especially for a government program, that's a big leap. As you can see from our numbers didn't take a hit. So we also saw from the residents saying that we appreciate the fact that we can schedule a reservation and come and can get in and out quickly versus waiting in a long line. So that convenience was really a factor I think our customers looked at. The recycler too, I think, likes the fact that we have this scheduled event. They kind of can set up their staffing to come in and make sure they don't have too many, not enough. Because that's always a delicate balance there to make sure you have enough people there for the amount of material. Because if you do get behind, the lines can get long, get ugly in a hurry. So I think overall we've proven here with the reservations work and then the fee works, and constantly looking at our model of how we can collect more material more efficiently and better serve our customers. Again, the customer surveys on this program are very high.
Pre-registration was it's something we really struggle with, as I recall. So, but do you still get walk-ins? Do you get people who are, how do you come?
We've seen it fall off.
Okay.
Like most of the time I'm checking the folks in. So the first couple of times we did it, you can tell, you ask them for their name and they have a blank look on their face. Oh, I had to register. It really, especially this last event like 2 weeks ago, there were very few people that didn't have an appointment. But we've built in flexibility there. If someone doesn't have an appointment, they can come in and still be served.
It worked. And then we have people that sign up that don't show up. So it kind of evens out. And then we have some that show up that didn't know they had to sign up. Kind of evens out. But Kirk has a good point. Surveys indicate that people seem very happy to trade a fee for convenience. There's people that used this event in the past when it was free and they just said the long lines were terrible. They were much happier to get through quickly.
Are we still on both sides? Are we still getting illegal drop-offs?
I had one today, but no, it's, I did have a TV dropped off a couple months ago, but I got his license plate.
Oh, okay, so we're happy with the camera.
Very few, yeah. Never HHW. We've never had a legal dump off when we're not there. Maybe 6 times in electronics over 5 years. That's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
good.
that's right.
We're going to get a subcontract with Dog the Bounty Hunter to help out. Kind of scared everybody away. I
Nothing for work these days, I hear.
Any reservations on 50 cents a pound?
No.
I need to start putting the plans together for 2022. Matter of fact, I'll probably come to you in a couple of weeks to start that process.
Do you think that'll hold for a while before it has to raise again?
I was thinking that when you asked me that. It's a good question.
We all know the
Looked at a
markets.
little, because I got the impression and I've heard you say this before, it doesn't make sense to chase your tail. You're gonna keep racing it.
The reason I was thinking, would you want to phase it over 2 years? But it seems like a very.
I think if we stay at 4 events a year, the 50 cents should be sufficient.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
I think we'll need Samantha's help too as we get ready to launch the events next year of getting the message out, the price went up, but there's a clear reason why the price went up.
Right. Oh, yeah, getting the message out that it went up is important. Otherwise, people will be like, what? No surprises. But, I mean, just read today what consumer prices went up 6%.
I saw that. already.
Yeah.
Largest since 1990.
Yeah. And it's a great service. It's nice to not have to be like, what am I going to do with this paint? It's good.
And I think when we put this together, we thought that hopefully adding a fee, driving home the point that there is repercussions to what you buy and you have to think about your end of life disposal material. I hope that's driving that home a little bit.
That's gonna be a generational thing too, I believe, so.
Do you want an action on that today?
Justin, fee.
I don't know that we've done motions before on that, but if you think we need to, or
I would feel more confident. This might.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
So yeah, we hadn't actually, so we had talked about whether action would be necessary today or not. We did not word the agenda for action to be taken. So I believe that because this is a financial decision, it will probably have to be done later. We can certainly,
Yeah,
we could,
good point.
I mean, if it's discussed today, we could certainly add that to the VOC agenda on Monday for action.
Okay.
If that pleases the board, you think they'll be ready for, the final go ahead, Justin, that you're.
Yeah, I don't,
confident with
it's
that number?
back to your, I don't need it today. We got some time to play the event.
Would you rather firm up your numbers and we can go to
Yeah,
the next workshop and VOC meeting cycle, or are you ready for Monday?
I'm thinking, so Department of Ag helps, they pay for pesticides that come to the event, and he just sent out his letter saying, hey, I need to know if you want to piggyback again in 2022. So I was gonna draft a letter for you guys. I'm wondering if maybe I bring that to a workshop and also do the feed there.
So that's,
Okay.
sounds great. We're convinced those state monies are pretty secure then.
Yeah, I know for
Okay.
Department of Ag, now it is they just have a lump sum, and however many counties show interest, they divide that by the number of counties, and that's your allotted amount. That is a good question. The DEP, we get 50% reimbursement of what they call eligible expenses. So I have to subtract the fees we bring in off of that, and they'll give us 50% of the difference. That has a limit of 100,000 a year. This year, I think our total was like 60,000. So I think we were okay there too, with 4 events. I think the projections next year shows 70. Yeah, 70. This year it'll be 61. And I'll keep an eye on that too if we ever get close to that number.
So you've pretty much written off the waste management's willingness to do sponsorship.
I have, yeah. And just based on,
If anybody could afford it, they could. So it's kind of a shame. You had small operators should be able to do it before.
it's interesting, but big companies generally tend to be the most resistant to doing
Yeah.
it.
Oh, that's why they get to be big companies.
Yeah, that's right. But, so the 4 facilities that were given 5,000, one had to be sold off as part of the acquisition. That's now owned by No Environmental. I've left voicemail, email, and I just don't get a response. I have talked to the guy at Waste Management, and I just sense in his voice that he's pretty much saying we're not going to continue to do this. So yeah, I feel pretty
Is
confident.
that a regional office or a district office? Or
That's it. He's out of Eastern PA.
he's got a big area.
Yeah, he's got a big area. Ready to move on?
Yes.
I'm still back on electronics. Sorry. All right, yard waste. Gary, you might, Vince too, Gene, I'm not sure. We did this about 5 years ago. We changed the agreements that we had with our municipal participants. So the general premise is municipalities are required to recycle leaf waste once they reach a certain population level. Some have developed sites for their citizens to use. Some do curbside programs. The sites that, or the municipalities that develop sites, they need equipment to process their material. And we felt it didn't make sense for each one of them to buy a $500,000 piece of equipment that they may use three weeks out of the year and then sit the rest of the year. So the county took the lead on buying equipment using grant money, and we essentially rent it out to them at cost. Prior to that, 5 years ago, my predecessor was charged, it was just a flat rate every year. I had some concerns with that. We had some sites that barely put any hours on. We had some that put a lot. I didn't see equity there. And then sometimes we lost money or we made money. It was a crapshoot. So we went to why don't we pay the cost up front? We'll divide it by the hours and bill them based on the hours. So you're paying for what you use. Thought a little bit more equitable. So the goal was for the program to break even. And 2 years ago, I worked with finance it was interesting. We had some expenses being tracked in one accounting unit, some in another. We lumped them all together into one accounting unit so we could try to track all the costs. We did not get the insurance costs in there, and I need to work with HR to make sure we get those in there to be tracked. So it looks like if you look at the top chart, that's not including the insurance. It looks like the program's once making money, but when you factor the insurance in, it really isn't. It's more break even. Starting in 2022, the county's going to add indirect costs to the program, and that'll push it into the red. That it'll look like the program every year loses money. I think indirect costs are easier to build into the percent or per pound fees. I wanted to know how you felt about potentially approaching municipalities and trying to build these indirect costs into the expense of the program. Especially Gary Vince, I know you've been elected officials on the other side. If you'd be resistant to that.
So this would translate into the hourly rate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I generate the invoices right now and I track all the maintenance. We have a written agreement that spells it out. What we track: maintenance, repair, transportation, and insurance. We don't have anything in the agreement about administrative costs or indirect costs. So personally, I don't want to just throw these in there without letting them know. I don't think that's the right thing to do.
Certainly. But I think it's a very justifiable cost. And the thing that I've heard over the years, and I think Vince says too, is that municipalities find this is a really valuable service for them.
Yeah.
This
So if
saves
you're-
them a lot. I don't think they would have any right to complain for us trying to recoup all of our legitimate costs. And candidly, even if there was some type of premium on it, I wouldn't have a problem with that either. Just, you want to avoid having a massive plus up in a single year.
That's what I wanted to, so we can start working on, I think it's going to require a change to the written agreement to spell that out, just so everyone knows and it's on the same page.
Yeah, they should learn what the true cost of it is. Nobody's going to go back to buying their own equipment.
This is a small cost, relatively speaking, to most municipalities. Silver Spring Mechanicsburg do they still share a site?
They do.
Yeah. That helps each of them too.
And we have two shared sites, Middlesex, North Middleton shared sites. Silver Spring.
Yeah, wasn't there a little bit of controversy there between Mechanicsburg and Silver Spring?
Yeah.
All taken care of then, or?
I don't know.
Okay.
I've heard that Silver Spring may want to eventually get their own site.
They've been talking about that for a number of years.
Yeah, they've been talking about that for years.
Just doing that up at Stony Ridge.
Yeah, I guess they're gonna get some land. I see that from, honestly, in my opinion, this current site is too small. Silver Spring is with the fastest growing. They will, probably generate a lot of material. Probably could use their own site.
Or a second site. There's a lot of geographic spread there. Some people would still use Mechanicsburg, some people would.
And the way they do it now, they split the costs of the program. But the site is actually Mechanicsburg. They're supposed to oversee the site, and then Mechanicsburg uses their personnel to do all the equipment operation.
Justin, does this affect any municipalities in the Western Cog?
The Shippensburg Borough,
Yes,
yeah, they use the equipment.
okay.
They rent the equipment from
But
us.
not, based upon what I've heard you say, it wouldn't affect Newville or Newburgh or Lower Frankfurt or Upper Frankfurt.
No, what do you mean?
I'm
in
just
terms of-
thinking about a cost increase to that group. Well, that will be absorbed very differently than Silver
Oh,
Spring.
yeah, no, we don't have any participants, and their population is not
High enough.
high enough to force them to have a program. The closest, I know Dickinson residents, because they're a neighbor of South Middleton that has a site, they see what goes on. At Dickinson and Mount Holly, some of their residents, I think, have asked for a site or something similar. That's the closest to come to. All right, what time? So I just wanted to give you a summary of the solid waste fund. I plotted a chart from 2007 through 2007. 2007 is when we lost the ability to collect tipping fees. We had, fortunately, as I said, accumulated some money, you can see there. So between 2007 and 2014, the fund was dropping by about 185,000 a year. And with the changes we've implemented in the last 5 years, we've gotten that down to $20,600 a year. If you divide the 2020 balance of 614 by that number, that's like 30 years of existence. The green part is the money that we started. We do charge a capital replacement fund on the equipment to build up a pot of money to buy new equipment, which I think was a wise thing to do. I have the different colors because that is restricted per that written agreement. It says it can only be used to buy equipment. We can't be using that for other things. So I don't want people to think the fund is actually necessarily increasing. We still are dropping slightly every year, but we've greatly reduced that drop. And as I said, I think we've done it while increasing the level of service. So I'm pleased with what we've been able to accomplish.
Price of replacement equipment.
What is it? How is it?
Is it?
Oh, it's going up.
Yeah, is it rapidly?
I know right now it's jumping quickly. I don't know if that'll continue, but generally it's been about a 6% increase every year.
And the state grant is that still, they
That-
changed the criteria on
They
how
did.
often
They
it's used.
used to be a 250,000 max. They upped it to 350.
Yeah, but then you can only apply every other.
And,
is it
well,
now still?
yeah, and then this year they let
Yeah.
previous awardees apply. I don't know if that's going to.
We don't know if that's going to, okay.
Our grinders, we have one about a 10-year cycle. One is 7 years old, so in the next 3 years, one of the next grant rounds, we'll probably look. As a matter of fact, we just submitted a grant to try to recover some of the money that was in excess of that 350,000 on the last machine. If we get that, I think we'll really be sitting very well.
No more issues with damages to.
We have, that's frustrating part of the program for me. I don't know how you solve it. We have it once in a while.
But we're able to cover it.
We do. It's written in the agreement. It says that you're going to have to pay for that repair.
So we always catch it.
We get it back. Yeah.
Good.
I think of anything else.
I think the changes we've made in the yard waste program have taken it largely a county subsidized program to a user fee-based system has really been effective, because I think some of the users, as you know, if you're using someone else's equipment and you're not financially responsible for it, you may not take the time and the effort that it needs to maintain it the right way. I think we were seeing that, and then when we flip the equation a little bit, we have an agreement that whoever's using it's responsible to pay for the capital costs, some of the operational costs too. You could see then suddenly there's a new emphasis on, hey, let's make sure this is done right. Hopefully it'll result in longer lifespan for our equipment too. This is a difficult program to manage of all these different users all wanting the equipment at different times. And then the equipment, just by virtue of what it's doing, requires regular maintenance and regular problems. So one of the things that's not on Judd's job description is mechanic, but he's kind of the chief mechanic for a lot of this too. It saved us a lot of money to help him do some of the work on the machines. Otherwise, it would be downtime that we'd have to outsource to do just by familiarizing the machine to be able to troubleshoot a lot of
Is hourly rate competitive?
it is, yeah.
It is I think I told Stacy, it's like loaning your car to 12 different people,
Yeah.
expecting them to treat it the same
Well,
way. It just doesn't happen.
I think I mentioned this before, but the thing we found on Russellborough Council is it used to be the police just, used whatever car was available. Then we got to the point where we assigned vehicles to individuals, and that did wonders in terms of the care of the vehicles, just ownership of society in town.
I love what the program accomplishes, but there's challenges to how it's accomplished. Someday I may maybe start talking to the steering committee about they'd be willing, it'd be higher costs again, but maybe hire a dedicated person. Just split the costs off to them.
I think that's an important point though, as we grow, people's expectations on this evolve, and the program itself will likely evolve. The expectations are high, so this stuff's not going away.
I think it's something to keep in mind too. We look at the solid waste fund balance. It's healthy. We're funding, the expenses we have now. The long term, we need to think when that runs out, what do we do? So that's something I think we want to keep in front of the board. The money's sitting there. It's paying for limited expenses now. There could be opportunities at some point to expand our service offerings, expand what we do. is that a better use of the money now than just letting it sit there? And then longer term, when that money runs out, are we done in the recycling realm, or are we going to kind of incorporate that under the broader umbrella of the county general fund service, still keeping our fee for service type, offerings there? But I think it's a question right now we don't have to think of in the near term, but we should be thinking about in the long term.
The market settles down at some point, you start doing some long-term thinking. We're maybe moving direction of the market.
Yes, I gave you a great point, Craig. I gave you a summary sheet. I'm not going to go over it, but at the bottom, tried to point out the key takeaways. And at the last bullet there is what Kirk kind of just alluded to is, we're trying to make the fund last as long as we can. And then we're going through a plan revision right now, by the way, so we're planning for the next 10 years. So any input you can offer up on maybe what you foresee happening in that time frame.
Honestly, I think the biggest driver of this is going to be whatever happens with federal regulations and policy initiatives. So I trust we're following industry news on that and such to see if there's any bigger shifts coming. I know you read articles because you send them.
Yeah, I try to keep up to date. That's a good point.
Some of the things on the horizon, we did bring a grant application to the board for paper shredding, something we're looking at. And also working with facilities, and York College has an engineering department that does some kind of pro bono work in the community. So we have them looking at our site down there. Like if we were to look at a new building to support paper shredding and other offerings, how would it be laid out? So some real light feasibility work, but they're the type of things we want to keep looking at and see, what's the future of our program look like? We're the fastest growing county. I don't think any of these needs are going away. So as those needs continue to increase, our program, as you say, Gary, will have to evolve along with it. We've got a great site down there that can support some of that. But we want to continually be thinking ahead so that we don't hit one day and say, okay, now what do we do? But we have a plan for moving ahead with overall that's consistent with the overall county facilities.
Eric, I think I know the answer to this question, but what about, since our bridges for the most part are almost renovated, can any of that $5 fee be used for this?
No.
Okay.
Have some ideas on that too. We bring it forward. What we can do next with that.
Good. Good.
It was a side subject. With the new infrastructure package, there's a big focus on bridges there. And also through HATS with the next update of our TIP, we're looking at some money for local land bridges 20 feet and above for funding like that. Potentially we can match up with some of our funding. So we took care of our stock, worked with our municipalities to take care of theirs.
Yeah.
And all our existing ones are on a regular schedule, so we're including the future maintenance.
Sure, yeah. They'll all be, inspected, maintained, and stay in good repair.
Mm-hmm. I can't imagine not having these programs. I imagine they'll expand. And something in recycling may change at some point in time. And I think we have to, as we think about our 10-year plan, we have to think about what could possibly change and just, be ready to pivot if we need to. It's an excellent service. I know people use it, people like it, just as you said.
And we were talking the other day, I've been saying this for a couple of years. I think the next horizon, the challenge in the recycling industry is food waste.
Okay.
I think about 30% of food waste is landfill. You're starting to see some development of anaerobic digesters. I came to you with sponsoring Dickinson on their anaerobic digesters. So I don't know, Kirk asked, could municipalities take that at their sites? They could. It does create a whole nother realm of regulations for them. To this point, they've been resistant to do that. Plus space, a lot of them space already is an issue. They are, all of them operate under what's called a permit by rule. It's a real simple one-page application. Basically says if you're doing this, you're good, but you're only limited to 5 acres. And once you go above 5 acres, and then you get kicked into an individual permit, it's just a bigger burden.
Do we have any, in terms of like the big shocks that came with China refusing to take some of these things, and has there been some, what's the word I'm looking for? Some offset to that? Have we adjusted to it, or are we still just without those markets?
No, I think we have. And I said that when it happened, I thought it would lead to development of domestic infrastructure for recycling, and it has. And now I think I've sent you some articles that you're starting to see the prices rebound a little bit. Recycling materials are coming back up. I think that's a result of that domestic development. So yeah, so I think we're starting to see a rebound, which is way, if you look back at history, that's, you don't sometimes forget history. It's unfortunately, unlike the waste disposal industry, the recycling industry is more up and down. You got to weather the lows. And I think plan for those when you're in the highs. Now the lows probably come. I think recycling got good scores in the climate change.
Yeah, it was actually the highest rated mitigation activity was offered up. The one that had the highest level of participation too, so very popular.
Yeah, and I think people would like to be better at it on a household level and really understand what they can recycle, what they can't recycle.
Oh, man.
Yeah, if I can't recycle it and it doesn't apply at the county, what do I do with it? Maybe there's expansion at the county for things like that. I don't know. But, there are countries that have to import their trash from elsewhere because they are so good at recycling, right? They're like, oh, give me more.
And wishful recycling was mentioned in the climate action plan. People are putting stuff that they think can be recycled and can't. My wife's probably the worst at that. So that's
where
educational materials give to her.
It's so challenging. I would love to see federal.
It keeps changing too, and it's by municipality.
Yeah. I'd like to see something at the federal level, trying to standardize acceptable recyclables across the country. Because you're right, it's locale by locale, and
Right.
how do someone moves from one place to another and they're totally confused. That is a big
Or
challenge.
even like, what condition does it really need to be in?
Right.
Right.
Like in Mechanicsburg, I know, when I was on council, we spent a lot of time educating people on this could recycle, this can't. It takes you a long time to get people spun up to what's expected. And the rules change.
Then all of a sudden, the rules
All of a
change
sudden,
because
they
the
take it that way.
bottom of the market fell out.
And people just get kind of
Frustrated.
They want to do the right thing, but they're not going to invest incredible amounts of time learning about what goes in, what doesn't go in, what's changed. Yeah, there's for a lot of change. Okay.
So I
I don't have anything else. Anybody have any questions? Gentlemen, you continue to impress me. I think this is great work. I'm really fortunate to have you guys to help with this. So keep up the good work. You got the information you needed from us regarding fees and such. Nothing else. We will move on to item 5, which is other business. Do we have additional items to come up with, commissioners? Just that. Okay, in that case, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you.
Parker, are you going out to the